Do handstands really build upper body strength? Well, by the end of this video, you'll be able to tell for yourself. Now, a lot of people make the mistake that thinking that handstands are just about balance, when in reality, there's a lot more to it than that. So let's take a look at the first step here. First of all, we want to have wide fingers, and we want to put the hands nice and wide. We want a good base to start with. A lot of people will make the mistake of putting their hands too narrow. You can do a handstand with narrow hands, and that just adds to the fun and complexity. But we want to have the hands wide. The first thing that we want to do is be able to get into the position like this, and a lot of people might have a difficult time getting down into this position, but I know that you can build from where you're at. You can do this, and you can transform your body, just like all of our students here at Pacific Rim Athletics. This is the first position, and we should be able to have a conversation like this. And so you can challenge yourself and start going through these piece by piece to see, does a handstand really take upper body strength? So that's the first one, building up to 10 seconds, then 30 seconds, then even 60 seconds. The next step is going to be bringing the feet and the hips and the knees up a couple of inches so that we're on top of the elbows like that. So that would be the next phase. In plain terms, what we're doing is lifting the hips up overhead and starting to get to the point where we can stack the hips over the shoulders, over the hands. A lot of people also make the mistake of starting to build a handstand just using a wall, when all that's going to do is it's like learning to do a backflip before you can crawl or before you can stand. Okay, it's a different order of events that need to take place. So we're here, and this is the next step. Okay, and again, 30 seconds, 60 seconds. It should be comfortable, and you should be able to hold that for a long period of time and even have a conversation. The next step, check this out. We can take one leg away and hold. And again, being able to hold that for long periods of time. Can you hold that for 30 seconds, 60 seconds, or can you do reps? For example, 1, 2, etc. Sets of 10 reps, or 5 on both sides, or even high volume. So that would be the next phase of training and building the handstand. So how does that feel so far? How does that feel in terms of upper body strength? Whenever you start to look at it logically and build this logically step by step, you start to see the components of strength that are actually required and why it makes sense to build handstands on demand from a lot of different angles and not just a vertical one. And that it's not just about balance, but it's about building a strong foundation that it requires a lot of different elements. Okay, so the next one, we're balancing here, but using strength. 1, and then the other side. Okay, so that would be the next step in the phase. And what's cool about all of this is that as you build these, as you're building the handstand logically, sequentially, you're gaining these different skills along the way. So far, realize what we've just done. We've gone over the first position that I showed you, then the knees on top of the triceps, then the one leg out at a time for each side. So that's basically 4 different positions if you count both sides, but 4 different positions so far. Okay, the next position that we want to do, I'll show you the secret one more towards the end, but let's now go from the top down. So that was kind of the bottom up. So let's say that now we want to start trying to kick into the handstand. Okay, and like I talk about in the pull-up video, and I mentioned this in other places, but there's this aspect of working the mini moves that build the main move and working them from both different ends of the spectrum. So there we worked on the low end of the spectrum, starting to build and sculpt our way up to the handstand. And then the next way is going to go from high down to low. And eventually this is going to come together to build that. And so this is how I teach this. And this is what works really well for me and all of our students here in Powerbatics Training at Pacific Rim Athletics. But the legs are going to be straight and the hands are going to be down. And this is called a needle kick position, which is for tumbling and other advanced skills. But you're going to see immediately that this requires a level of flexibility, okay, to be able to get to this position here. And then a lot of people will make the mistake of just diving over into the handstand with their hands up like this and just kicking up and then repeatedly falling. You don't need to fall at all on a handstand. If you start with the hands down, you can control all the weight. The leg on the back is up, and then we're going to use something called heel drive to lift. And we can do that safely and effectively. Now think about this. Every time you kick that foot up into the air and there's a little bit of hold, how much are you holding weight-wise in your hands? Well, it's pretty close to your body weight, you know, maybe minus a certain percentage from the arms and so forth. But each time you're doing a rep, and it's basically time under tension strength training. On top of that, your grip is even being developed, because I've mentioned this before too. Some people will, when they're playing basketball, they'll palm the basketball, and that requires a level of mobility in their hand, of course the hand size, and then the strength to be able to grip the ball. And we're doing this, we're building grip strength on the ground, because you have to palm the ground in order to do this. And I'll tell you this, whenever I've done sets of, I used to do a workout that was 5 rounds of handstand and support stand. So support stand is up in the rings like this, and kind of a high iron cross, a little bit angled out like this. And so I would hold a handstand for 1 minute, and then the support stand for 1 minute, and back and forth, back and forth. And the forearms after the handstands of those 1 minute holds felt like Popeye forearms. But this is where we're gonna go now. So we are kicking up and keeping that foot close to the ground, and then we're going higher and higher until we actually start to get hang time, and then we can hold, okay? And we can do other positions from there, but I'll leave it at that for right now. Okay, so let's go back down, okay? Because that's not gonna happen instantaneously. It's not like just a couple of sessions, you're gonna just nail the vertical handstand. Maybe it will for you, but it will happen at some point. And so we're going from the vertical handstand. Now let's take it back down, and we're gonna go into the in-between phase now, where most people get stuck. You get stuck on the muscle up at the in-between phase. People get stuck on, other skills like maybe vaults and so on. It's always that in-between phase. And so let's take a look at the position between the high and the low, which is kind of like my secret sauce for building the handstand. And then again, you tell me if this requires strength or if it builds strength. But we'll be here, and we went over those little knee lifts like this, okay? Now what if we go and we take both off at the same time? That would be the bent arm handstand at the low angle. So bent knees, bent elbows. It doesn't look as pretty as doing it all up on the wall, nice and straight and everything, but you actually are gonna build some really good foundational strength by doing this, by holding this position, building up to that. Because once you have that, and if you're practicing the high end and the low end, and then you do that in the middle, it's gonna start to meld that together, and you'll be able to balance in any position of handstand that you want to. Now, here's the critical thing though. One thing that'll hold people back from achieving going all the way up, and I'll show you. So we can hold here and then slowly press up. And we wanna be able to pull our body straight into a line. And what keeps people back from doing their handstand or being able to press all the way up is too much bench press, too much dumbbell work, too many things that are going and keeping the arms at this angle here, pushing like this, arching, doing the vertical press like this. Look at that angle. Okay, a handstand, we want to be able to have strength that goes vertical. So once again, I'll show you so you can understand what I mean. So here it's closed, pressing up and opening the angle. Okay, so give some of those positions a try and see for yourself. Does a handstand actually build strength? I challenge you, work on these for a couple of days instead of the weightlifting and see how it goes.